Hello, everybody out there in social media land. Matt Bernier here. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday night on all the FanDuel Racing social channels. Obviously, this was supposed to be sort of the aftermath of the Rebel and the Honeybee here at Oaklawn Park, but Mother Nature had other ideas. The folks here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, accordingly moved everything back a full day, and then even still doing that, we couldn't race here on this Saturday. So we kicked things off right on Sunday with the Rebel Stakes card. It's a major Kentucky Derby prep race, and the Honeybee goes along with it as well. There's a major Kentucky Oaks prep. It is not just myself. I am joined by Joe Talamo, and shortly we'll be seeing Andy Biancone as well. Joe, good evening. A little bit late to the party here. Thought we were going to get things going about a day or so ago, but Mother Nature had other ideas.
Yeah, it sure did. They've had brutal weather, as you know, all across the Midwest and East Coast. But luckily, we're here. It's actually a gorgeous day today. It's like mid 40s, but as we're used to 20, 30 degrees, it felt like about 55 or 60. But just happy to be here this weekend.
Yeah, it did feel really nice this afternoon when the wind died down, about 50 degrees in the sunshine. It was really, really solid. And it seems like it's going to be that way for the next couple of days. We're going to run on Sunday. That's the big day that we're going to talk about. And then they're going to run again on Monday as well. And I believe we're supposed to get to the mid 60s on Monday. So just that time of year where things go up and down, up and down. I mentioned that Joe is here. Andy Biancone is also with us here. Good evening, Andy.
Hey guys, what's poppin'?
We're here. We a little bit later than we had anticipated, but we're here and we're all talking about the big race coming up on Sunday afternoon. That is the Grade 2 Rebel. 50 points will be awarded to the winner. That will lock yourself into the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby. The runner-up will get 25 points. That could very well get you on the precipice of getting into the starting gate the first Saturday in May. And again, we'll talk at the very end of the show about the Honeybee for the 3-year-old fillies. Before we start diving into the actual individual runners, Andy, let's first talk before we have a little bit of a sidebar where you went and chatted with one of the main contenders in the Rebel on Sunday, just from a horsewoman standpoint, how much does this sort of alteration of the schedule affect the prep work for these horses? Or is it something as simple as we're this far along, moving it a day isn't really going to make things that dramatically different?
Obviously, as a trainer, you're getting these horses ready to peak on the big day. However, I do feel like the Kentucky Derby really is the ultimate goal, and this is kind of more like a stepping stone. With that being said, majority of these horses have put in their final preps ways before the snowstorm and everything. So really their baseline fitness is there, and just keeping them sound, fresh, and happy is kind of the most important thing throughout this week. A lot of these horses were able to utilize the jogging wheel at Oaklawn Park, just a really nice feature that allows horses to jog without a rider, without saddle, just free in an open space. And a lot of horses were jogging and cantering around in the barns and stuff. So everyone's been making the best of it. We did open the track for training today at 2 p.m. and oh my gosh, I had so much fun. I got on a couple for Norm, just feeling the sun on my back. The horses were also happy to be out, and the track seems like it's going the right way.
This is everything that we want to hear leading up to the big day on Sunday. Now, we're fortunate enough to have Andy here with Joe and I live. But, Andy, earlier you had an opportunity to catch up with a major contender coming up in the Rebel on Sunday. Some would argue the main contender. Let's take a look at that piece right now.
Sandman has drawn post position 3 in this Sunday's Grade 2 Rebel. 50 points on the line for the Kentucky Derby. And this horse, I think, has a serious chance. He is a huge personality. He's been all up in my hat, all up in my jacket. He's like, calls the attention as soon as you walk in the barn. You can't miss him. That cute pink face and just an electric personality. But we talked about all the trouble he had in the Southwest. Lost his footing completely at the break. Spotted the field behind a slow pace. Made a 5-wide rally under Christian Torres to just get beat a length by Speed King. So this horse certainly has ability. But he's been one that has just kept learning with each start. He's kind of a quirky horse. He's a little bit immature. He's by Tappet. And typical Tappet personalities, they learn by doing. So I think maturity-wise, he's really starting to figure things out. The light bulb is starting to turn on. He's demanding candies right now. Very demanding, but he has been a fun horse to watch train. He kind of starts off very kind, in hand. And as the gallop gets on, he becomes super ranked, tough to pull up, and of course gets competitive in traffic. So all the signs of a quality horse and all the signs of a horse who's going to eventually get that 1.25 mile distance. But a very talented individual. He was a $1.2 million purchase out of the 2-year-old in training sales. but has handled that well, and physically just looks like one who's continuing to grow and improve. Physically, he's always been kind of a feminine looking horse, like crazy good mover, not a huge tank or anything, just kind of a very smooth way about it. But I'm happy to see he is filling in. Every time I come back to Oaklawn, it seems like this horse is just growing and changing. But a really fun personality, and I think he's certainly live in the Rebel this Sunday.
All right, Joe, we heard Andy's take right there, joined by Sandman. He's the 4-1 morning line favorite, and you'll note this is the field, the updated field for the Grade 2 Rebel on Sunday. Note the defection of Bullard. He will not be running here. Joe, Sandman's 4-1 on the morning line. I said it earlier in the week in a shift that I had on FanDuel TV. I think he's going to end up being a clear favorite. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out in less than 24 hours' time, but I could see him being 2-1, 5-2 in here. Let's go back to that Southwest. Andy mentioned that he's been a little bit of a, I don't want to say an immature horse, but he's kind of figuring things out on the fly. Joe, this was a terrible stumble to start this race.
I mean, even I think it was worse than terrible. I mean, notice Christian Torres. I must have watched that about 6 or 7 times. I mean, it's amazing for him to just keep his balance to even stay on that horse after that. And I mean, look how much he spots this field, and they didn't go overly quick at all. I mean, for the Southwest, they went 47-4, and as you could see, their Speed King kind of got away, but. I mean, I was impressed that he was able to make up that much ground and run second in a field like that. And that's why I'm a pick him to win this race too. Like you said, I mean, I could see him going off 5-2, 2-1, maybe even less if he gets more money on him. But if he gets a clean break, he's going to be awfully tough tomorrow.
Andy, on paper, it looks like there's ample speed in this race to set up for a horse like Sandman. I'm also not convinced that he absolutely has to drop out and make one run. If he got out of the blocks a little bit sharper in the Southwest, who knows? Maybe he's a little bit closer to the front.
Yeah, absolutely. But just the fact that he was able to make up such ground and even recover from a move like that, I think people often don't take into a fact that when a horse loses their action so suddenly like that, whether it's stumbling at the break, getting slammed, whatever, they are eliminated for the race. It really is a huge detriment to the rest of the race. But he seems to have recovered fine. He got into rhythm. Christian Torres gave him every single chance, just helped him out, stayed balanced, and was able to make up a ton of ground. But this race, there's just so much to dissect. Like even other horses coming out of this race, not even talking about Sandman, Publisher, Tastic, so many horses in there really had trouble trips.
And I think you kind of need to make a decision as a gambler and a handicapper. What do you think of the Southwest? Is that going to be a key form line that you base your opinions off of? Or do you want to look for a fresh face coming up in the Rebel here on Sunday afternoon? And if it's Oaklawn Park, if it's a Kentucky Derby prep, Bob Baffert is usually well represented, and no different this year. As we take a look at Madaket Road, the 5, who is 9-2 on the morning line. This was his most recent start. It came in the Bob Lewis at Santa Anita. Andy, he's no match for Citizen Bull, who was the champion 2-year-old. He won the Breeders' Cup last year. The pace of this race did not necessarily work to the benefit of a horse like Madaket Road. What do you make of his chances here at Oaklawn on Sunday?
I think he's an interesting one for sure. One who can be forward. Santa Anita, it's probably one of the most speed biased tracks in the country. Like it is tough to make up ground there. So I do think his effort there is credible. But with that being said, that was a 5-horse field, and he is meeting some tough competition in the Rebel.
Joe, where do you think that performance in the Lewis puts Madaket Road as far as this year's Rebel field is concerned?
I mean, I think he has a shot. For me, I'm just going to go elsewhere. I thought that was an okay race. The thing about that too, like I thought he had every opportunity. Not that he was going to beat Citizen Bull, but I thought he had every shot to finish second and beat his stablemate Rodriguez, which he didn't. But nonetheless, it was still a good effort. I do like the fact that he's able to kind of sit behind horses and take kickback. As Andy mentioned, Santa Anita, I mean, we've seen so many races where it doesn't really matter how quick you go. Speed just seems to hold, and it's so hard to make up ground there. So saying that, I think in the Rebel, which is, I mean, if they all go, I think it's going to be a very hot pace. It definitely could suit him well. I do like his last work, 112 flat, and I know Bob always lets his horses gallop out really well. So fitness-wise, I think he's coming in here pretty well.
This might be a little bit of a loaded question. Just a quick answer from both of you. Are you surprised that he's the one that Bob sends? Bob usually sends a monster to Oaklawn Park. I would have thought it would have been Barnes, maybe as just a quick turnaround. I'm a little bit surprised. I don't want to say that Madaket Road's not a nice horse, but usually he sends a monster, and I don't get monster vibes from this horse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think Bob has so many good 3-year-olds right now. I don't think he's his top tier, but nonetheless, I mean, he's still a really nice horse. I think he's just kind of playing. He has so many horses that need to go to the San Felipe, saying they need a Derby here, maybe ship some to New Orleans and the Louisiana Derby. So I think it's just one of those things where he's just trying to get them settled apart to where they don't meet up with each other this soon.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. He's just kind of like you said, Matt. I mean, we're kind of expecting him to unleash a monster over here at Oaklawn with the big purses, and he really hasn't done that yet. So I do think Madaket Road is talented. I like that Irad Ortiz Jr. will be aboard, but I'm not completely sold that he is the end all be all in here.
As an aside, I'm also a little bit worried about distance with this horse. Smoke Blackened on the bottom. It's all sprint. I wonder how far he really wants to go. Neither here nor there. We've talked about him enough. Let's circle back to that Southwest. Andy, you had mentioned, we talked about the trip horse in there being Sandman. How about Tastic, who's in the purple way back? But I don't want to gloss over the winner, Speed King, who went out there. He did all the dirty work. There's other speed in this race. He puts them away, and he's still finding at the end.
Yeah, Speed King, I think, handled himself like a true professional. I mean, the outside post is never easy going 2 turns at Oaklawn Park. He got out of there well, established good position, and he took heat from the Lucas horse all the way around, American Promise, and still was able to kick on just unbothered. But just from seeing Speed King in person and stuff, he seems like a very smart horse who is easy on himself, and he certainly has a good mindset. Like other horses putting pressure on him, etc., don't seem to bother him. We actually did a really cool feature on Speed King and his owner, Ted Bowman, and man, did he gain a fan. His owner, Ted, coolest guy, nicest guy, probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Just a really easy team to root for. Ron Moquette does an amazing job and really loves and cares about all his horses. And Ted Bowman, the same. I really urge you guys, I can't wait for the feature to come out because it was seriously it was a tearjerker. It was awesome.
Joe, he's gritty, he's fast, he's proven here at the distance and at the track. What would there be any kind of concern for this horse, the 11 Speed King, on Sunday?
For one to post, I mean, with bullet scratching, he's going to be in the 10 hole. So Rafael Bejarano is definitely going to have to be somewhat aggressive to not be stuck 4 or 5 wide around the first turn. The one thing I will say, and not taking anything away from him, I mean, which he's been brilliant in all 3 starts. He's never really had any adversity, especially his last race. I mean, he was able to go 24, 47, and 4, like we said earlier. I mean, for a Derby prep, those are pretty soft fractions, and he's really never sat off of horses or been in behind horses and gotten dirt. So that's the one thing I would be curious to see tomorrow is if he breaks a touch slow, if speed goes, if he's able to kind of sit behind and get a stalk and trip, or if he is a one-dimensional speed horse that just has to go out in front. But nonetheless, he's been brilliant, and that last win was really nice in the Southwest.
You saw Tastic. He was spotlighted in there. We'll talk more about him throughout the course of Sunday's show because I know we've got some super cuts involved with him. I think he could move forward here in this race on Sunday afternoon. Smoking Wicked Joe, the toughest part of the handicapping puzzle for me with this Rebel is these sprinters, I think, are really good sprinters. I don't know how they're going to translate going out to 2 turns and dealing with other gas in this race. Overall, let's take it both from a handicapping standpoint, Joe, but also from a rider standpoint. With a horse like Smoking Wicked, you're taking a look at the win in the Louisiana Futurity. This was against Louisiana breds to round out his 2-year-old campaign. From a rider standpoint, what do you do? Do you just basically go and say, we're going to go as fast as we can for as far as we can?
And that's the curious part, man. It's so funny with a horse like Smoking Wicked. By far, he's the speed of the race, unless Innovator or someone else just really wants to take it to him. Saying that, I just really think he's kind of distant limitation. I really think he's a true sprinter. I could be totally wrong. He might wire the field tomorrow by 5, but I just really think he's a sprinter. They're just trying to stretch him out and see what happens. And saying that, Tyler Gaffalione probably knows that he's a really quick horse. So sometimes you don't want to be overly aggressive out the gate because, I mean, this is a horse that can put up a 45 and change 46 half mile. I don't think you want to do that tomorrow in the Rebel and, be around at the end for win, place, or show. So it's going to be interesting. If he's not in front, he's definitely going to be close. But I think it's one of those things to where you definitely want to not let him go too fast just because he's truly stretching out for the first time today in a grade or tomorrow in a grade 2. So it's going to be interesting tactic wise. But again, getting back to that last race, the second place horse came back and ran fourth in a state bred maiden. Allowance race 9-2 life, and then Star Rock Star came back and he's still a maiden. So I mean, I'm not sure what he beat that day. Not taking anything away from him, it was pretty impressive. But I just think he's a true sprinter.
Andy, whether you like the horse or not, doesn't he just guarantee that this is going to be a swift pace?
Absolutely. I definitely think, I mean, and from what I've seen of Innovator so far, he's certainly going to be a part of the pace. And Tyler Bacon, very good little rider, young apprentice, but he's still kind of, working on that strength aspect. I see horses, he gets a lot of run out of horses, but sometimes he gets a lot of run out of horses early as well, and they be kind of dragging him. So I do think those two are going to be, setting a hot pace. But just going back to Smoking Wicked, if you look at that race, you don't see him gallop out back in the against the Louisiana Futurity Stakes. Like, he is so impressive down to the wire, and as soon as he crosses that wire, he's like, all right, the race is over, and kind of hits the brakes a little bit, and the second place horse kind of gallops out much better than him. So I think Joe is kind of correct in that stretching this horse out is certainly going to be a test. It's an experiment. But yeah.
Smoking Wicked's going to go. Speed King is going to go. We would think that even though he's not necessarily a need the lead type, Dreamin' Blue, I think, is going to go. Now you've got Innovator, who we know is kind of a one-way speed. And then Coal Battle, down on the inside, who was the winner of the Smarty Jones. He won this race in gate-to-wire fashion, guys, but this is really the only time in his career that he's gone. He's actually sat in the majority of his races and been effective. I mean, look, to me, he is the rooting interest. If you're not gambling on this race, or if for whatever reason you don't have a gambling opinion, Coal Battle, the connections, and just the horse himself. He's very cool. He's very likable. He is stepping up in class considerably here, guys. I'll start with you, Joe. I would assume from the rail, you don't want to give up sort of good position early on, but if they're going to go guns blazing on the outside, don't you just take him back and try to make a run?
And that's the one good thing about this horse. I mean, if you take away his 2 turf starts, I mean, he's 4 for 4 and dirt. He really hasn't done anything wrong. And he's a horse. He won on the lead last time, but I mean, they went very pedestrian, 49, 115, and 3 for 3/4, which is very slow. But I mean, he's come from behind in all his other dirt races. I mean, it's hard to poke holes in anything, but I agree. He is, even though he's won 2 stakes, he is stepping up tomorrow in the Rebel. I mean, I think he's definitely facing his toughest competition. And I will say that last race in the Smarty Jones, Mo Quality came back to get beat 16 lengths in the Withers. And then Kale's Angel, who ran third in there, he's just a pure sprinter. He came back and won a 6 furlong stake at Oaklawn. So I think the jury's kind of out on what he beat last time. But nonetheless, I mean, he is 4 for 4 in dirt. And on form, I mean, you're a Thoroughgraph guy too. He's all his numbers have just gotten lower and lower. So I mean, he's definitely a horse on the improve. Can he win tomorrow? Without a doubt, but he's definitely gonna have to run his best race to do it.
Andy's paired up by our tops, and again, he's got versatility. I know he won that Smarty Johnson gate to wire, but that was the only time he'd ever been on the lead in his career. He can sit. He's just as effective off of it as he is when he controls things. Do you give him a look in this race tomorrow?
I mean, he's super versatile. He's got a ton of heart. Those are all going to be things that work in his favor, and super cute little face on him too. But from a physical standpoint, I've never been mind blown by Coal Battle. I've never looked at it and be like, "Oh my gosh, this horse is the real deal." He lacks a little bit on the physical aspect, and I think for colts on the Derby Trail, the physical aspect is so important. You need a horse with scope. You need a big horse. You need a ton of things. Horse with speed. And Coal Battle, like, I love him, bless him, like, rooting for him. But I do think this is going to be a major test of class for him.
Earlier this week, I was on with Curtis Callaward, and I said, I'm going to pick Tistastic in this race because of the trip. And I may have been a little bit premature. I may have spoken too soon. I'm going to just tell you who I like because we're going to take a look at his replay right now. I'm going to go to Hypnus for Kenny McPeak. And I just thought this was such a professional debut score. Going 2 turns, dealt with the slop. He sat, he was comfortable, he waited, split horses, and finished very well down the center of the racetrack. for Kenny to throw him right into the deep end here against a field like this in only a second lifetime start, I think speaks volumes about what they think of him. He's got class in his pedigree. Mom was a grade 1 winner. Her name was Dream Tree. He's buying to mischief. There's not much to knock about him other than he is taking on winners for the first time, and not just winners. He's taking on graded stakes company. Andy, do you give Hypnus a look here in this race on Sunday?
Absolutely. He is a very serious horse. You can see him just gallop out so easy over there at the fairgrounds. But Kenny McPeak really, we all know this. He's a trainer who kind of likes to run his horses into fitness. He never really cranks them to be ready first time out. This horse beat an excellent field on debut, going 2 turns, and he's only going to get better. And he beat a good field. I mean, Cromwell, a very nice horse of Cherie DeVoe, came back and I think finished 3rd most recently in a maiden on Risen Star Day, but got beat by a really nice horse, Yinzer for West Point, and has just been running against salty competition. But I do think Hypnus is a very serious horse.
Joe, what do you think of Hypnus tomorrow?
Besides Sandman, I love him a lot. You know what impresses me the most too. Not only did he win first time out, going 2 turns. Look at his previous workouts after his race. All of his workouts before, 101 and change, 103, 101 and 3 out the gate. Then he came back, his first work back, he easy 5/8 and 102. Then a minute flat, minute 4. I mean, if anything, I think that race might have woken him up in a good way. So, I mean, that's pretty scary. If you think he can improve off of that, he could definitely be right there in the end. Ran a good 85 buyer, 5 on thoroughgraphs. I mean, he number-wise, he definitely fits in here. And I just love his style, too. Brian Hernandez is such a great rider. I mean, that's his cup of tea. Settle in, get to the rail, come out. I mean, this is kind of a Mystic Dan type of a horse. I mean, obviously he's going to have to prove himself, but he is definitely has a big shot tomorrow.
Well, pick time. I've already tipped my hand here. I'm going to go to Hypnus. Maybe I'll feel silly for getting off the Tiztastic bandwagon, but I'm going to use both of them equally as far as the multi-race bets are concerned. I like Hypnus in here. Joe, who's your top pick in the Rebel?
I'm going to go with Sandman just because of that last – the break was just so bad, and for him to come running for second. And Andy made such a great point. Tappets, I've ridden so many in my career. They kind of like him. They take – like each race, they kind of get better and better and better. And they're such big, long striding horses. It seems the more they run, the better they get. And I mean, he seems to fit that to a T. And I just think he's primed for a big race tomorrow.
Andy, what do you like?
Oh, it's so hard. I mean, I'm like, I can't. I love Tiztastic. I love Publisher. I love Hypnus. I love Sandman. I guess I'll just go with Sandman too, because honestly, it was really funny. I was talking to Caden Arthur, Mark Cassie's assistant, just before we did that little segment with Sandman. And Caden said that the connections were like, oh, let's, after Churchill, maybe we should turn Sandman out, like give him a break. And Mark Cassie's like, no. This horse does not, like, he's going to learn by doing. He just needs to get in the game and keep going. And I think that's so accurate. He's still figuring things out. But the fact that we've seen such talent from him without really having seen the bottom of him, I think just speaks volumes. The sky's the limit for Sandman.
The Rebel goes as race number 11. You can catch it on FanDuel TV. We have one other race that we're going to talk about, and we want to keep these to about 30 minutes. So we'll 5 to 10 minutes here. We'll breeze through. The Grade 3 Honeybee goes as race number 9 on the card Sunday afternoon. And you can see we have a 7-5 favorite in Muhima, and we haven't heard if there are going to be any defections in this race. So right now it looks like a full field of 13 assembled. And let's talk about Muhima, Joe. She was really strong winning the Demoiselle up at Aqueduct. This was her first time going 2 turns. It was at 9 furlongs. You'll note that Ballerina Doro comes from way out of it to take a run at her, but Muhima's years are up. She's pretty comfortable out there. I don't really have much to knock about her.
I mean, she's done everything right her whole career, being 3 for 3. One thing of note, how about Brad Cox with his 3-year-old fillies? Immersive, who's 4 for 4, is on the sidelines. And then Good Cheer, who just won the Rachel Alexandra, is 5 for 5. I mean, he has 3 of the top fillies in the country that are undefeated and untested so far. And I mean, Muhima's one of them. I mean, like you said, you can't knock anything that she's done. I love her gallop out there. I mean, that was a 1 1/8 miles. It didn't seem that it phased her one bit. I will say drawing the rail, Flo's obviously going to have to be somewhat aggressive just so he doesn't get pinched back. I mean, besides look forward, maybe the 13.5G. it's going to be interesting pace-wise if she is going to be in front, but tactic-wise, I love how she can just kind of stalk. If she's not in front, I could see her laying second or third. But I mean, from a fitness perspective, she is coming off a bit of a layoff. Hasn't run since December, but Brad Cox is so good off of layoffs. A lot of good works, good bottom. I mean, she's going to be awfully tough to beat if she's fit and ready to go.
Andy, we saw Brad's other big filly, Good Cheer, come back last weekend in New Orleans. She came back as a big-time winner. Do you expect the same from Muhima?
I think Muhima could eat all those other fillies for breakfast. Just look at her. She is like a colt. Like, I honestly think if Brad
Yeah.
Cox ran this filly in the Rebel, she'd smoke all the boys. Like, I think she's
Really?
that good. Yes, I think she's that good. She's like, she looks like a colt. Just super, like, she'd be playing, she wouldn't be playing no powder puff. Like, she'd be on the big boys team for sure if we were talking about football here. But she is legit. I think the rail's fine for her. She drew the rail in the Demoiselle last time out. The mile on the 16th is a slight cutback, but as Joe said, she's coming off a little bit of a freshening, so I don't think the mile on the 16th is terrible for her. She's undefeated. I think this whole conversation is about who's going to run second, and I have a really good price horse who I think is going to be second.
Let's hear it.
I was going to say, you burying the lead, or do you want to just stick to the rundown? Is it in order? Talk to us.
You know me, I don't read the rundowns. I fly, but I like Necessity.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go a little off kilter here. Let's talk about Norm's filly, Necessity. Broke her maiden on January the 26th. She was really impressive doing so. I thought, to be fair, I thought she had a perfect trip that day, but she's going the right direction. What about her do you like so much?
Okay, well, first of all, a little bit biased because I galloped her all summer for Norm. But second part, 2 back at Oaklawn off the layoff. She pulled a Sandman coming out the gate, and she is the quirkiest, goofiest little filly, and it was so on brand for her to do this. Like, did not shock me at all. There was like a tire track right outside the gate, and she was just like, ah! Like, did a Sandman, like, ah! And spotted the field, 2 pulls,
Yeah.
and still ran on to finish a super game 4th. After that, she was 8-1 on the morning line, got bet down like 9-5 favorite, and smoked a good field that day next time out. But she's another one who is goofy and quirky, and Norm has not gotten to the bottom of her yet. And she's still already shown a world of talent. And Norm said that she's gotten better since her win. Like, her work, she's always been a good workhorse. She's worked better. And Norm is not really one to skip conditions. He likes, step by step, go to the allowance. So the fact that he's putting her in the grade 3 Honeybee, I think, is a very positive sign.
All right. So he is 1-2 for Andy in the Honeybee. Muhima
Go
over
to
Necessity. Joe, what do you think of Necessity? Again, a little bit off of the off script here, but I thought the maiden score was good. Do you give her any kind of a look to hit the board?
I mean, I do. Not even from the maiden score, but like what Andy said. I mean, look at that. She was 18 lengths back mid-race and then finished 4th by 5 1/4. I mean, even though that was a maiden race, that is pretty impressive. I mean, look, her running style fits it. You know what I mean? I don't think she's going to be up on a pace by any means, but if there is a somewhat of a quick pace and she is on the improve, I mean, she could definitely be right there. Again, if you look number-wise, she's taking progressions, just getting slowly better and better and better. And like Andy said, I mean, I've ridden for Norm quite a bit. That's a great point. He's not one to skip conditions, just loving to put him in the right spots to win. So I would give her a shot, just knowing she must be doing really well for Norm to put her in here to take a shot.
I think that's the most interesting aspect of this race to me. You talk about how she's getting better bit by bit by bit. You don't always see that. I know it is early 3-year-olds, but you don't always see them all going the right direction. I would say the bulk of this field is doing that sort of thing where they're taking those incremental steps forward. Nobody's really kind of veering off course with a dud here and there, including Take Charge Milady, who was the winner of the local prep in here, the Martha Washington. She was awesome this day, and I didn't really love her coming into this. The thing I like the most, Joe, about this race, we didn't even really get to see with the replay, her move around the far turn. She just started circling horses inside the half-mile pole, and for a filly to do that and then still finish the way that she did here, I think she's just kind of putting it all together here. I think she's going to give Muhima a stiff test.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny you was mentioning that move when watching it from a jockey's perspective. I love how Julian did that because he kind of put quiet side with Ricardo Santana in kind of a tight spot because he was trying to get out and take his spot, and he was like, "No, sir, not today." But I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. She's another filly getting back to numbers. She's just steadily improving, race by race by race, and I mean, like you said, I think we've noticed that the last few years that I don't think trainers are necessarily having their horses absolutely peaked, say 2, 3 races before the Kentucky Derby or Oaks. They seem to be kind of running them and place and being not overly aggressive, which is good. And in her case, I think it's right on point to where she's just slowly kind of getting there. And again, she could definitely give Muhima a run for her money tomorrow.
Andy, take Charge Milady, one that is proven from slightly off the pace. She's not going to be up there with the Muhimas of the world. Do you give her a chance to upset the big favorite?
I don't even give her a chance to like nobody's beating Muhima. She could be second or third. She might be a necessity, but nobody's beating Muhima. That's where I stand. Muhima could run in the Rebel, I think, and be
Wow.
fine. Yes, I like her
All
that
right.
much. She is serious. She's serious. But take Charge Milady. I do respect her, and I think Julian really suits her. He did an amazing job last time out in Martha, Washington, just keeping her settled, keeping her relaxed, and then being so confident circling the field. Like they go together just like, I don't know, pie and ice cream. They're like two peas in a pod.
All right, no. So now I know we have a couple other names in here. Maybe we can cue them up. We're getting toward the end of this piece here, but I kind of want to pull on this thread about how fascinated you are with Muhima. And obviously, this isn't to say that anybody's going to do this, but you're saying that you think she'd stack up well in the Rebel. Do you think she would stack up well with the boys, just period?
I think so. I mean,
Really?
we watched yes, I mean, even in the replay of the Demoiselle, you just see her, she looks like a bolded word on a page. Like all those other fillies look just like tiny little ants, and she's just like this big, beautiful, like she looked like a boy. And I saw her yesterday in person, and she was just as impressive standing in the stall without tack. I was like, oh my gosh. And horses, it's always tough to judge them just standing in the stall, and she was still impressive at that point. So I think
The only
she's the
reason
real
I
deal.
even keep bringing it up is because I think we all respect how much your opinion is and value your opinion is as far as physicality is concerned. And
Thanks,
I,
Matt.
no, I'm not. I'm not just blowing smoke. But I mean, the reality is, the boys right now are good, but they're not exceptional. And we'll find out. Maybe she's not ready to go off the layoff. I'd be stunned because Brad does the training, and Brad always has them ready to go. But I'm quite surprised. I haven't heard someone so bullish on really any horse in either division so far until you. So all eyes on Muhima tomorrow. And Joe, I guess from a gambling standpoint, and I don't want to gloss over if there's anybody else we want to touch on real quick, but my only fear with Muhima is she's going to be way too short from a gambling standpoint. I don't think she's going to represent fair odds. I think she's probably pushing odds on when all is said and done, and that's why I didn't pick her in here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I kind of want to get the early Oaks bet in on Muhima here. Andy likes her so much. You know what? From a gambling standpoint, I think who's good value is Quick Kick for Tom Amis. I mean, she's 12-1 morning line. I mean, the one knock, it's a 13-horse field. I mean, she's going to really have to work out a pretty good trip under Dylan Davis because, I mean, she's a filly that doesn't get out the gate very well. I would imagine she's going to be pretty far back there and have to pick them up at the end. But, I mean, she really hasn't done a thing wrong. She's run second and third to Immersive, who would be, 1-5 tomorrow, and the Honeybee. She hasn't run since November. She only has 4 works, so I don't think she's 100% crank tomorrow. But, I mean, at 12-1, if she goes off at that or more, I think that's pretty good value from a gambling standpoint.
We've seen her finish behind Immersive twice. She finished behind LaCara on debut. LaCara was awesome at Tampa a couple of weeks ago. She's going on at Gulfstream next Saturday. So to your point, she really hasn't done anything wrong. Around those losses, you've got an open length win at Saratoga. So I don't fault anybody that went that direction. Let's quickly slot in, look forward for Michael McCarthy, the filly shipping in from California. I do wonder how far she wants to go. She is speed in here, Joe. At the very least, I think she's a factor early on and can affect the way the race unfolds. I don't know if I love her chances to stick around at the end.
I kind of agree with you there. I mean, she did run 2 turns one time in the Starlet at Los Al and finished second to Tenma for Bob Baffert, who's a pretty nice filly. But the one thing that concerns me too, she won this race, won 7/8 last time. But look at the final time; it was 1:25 and 2. I mean, even if the track was slow that day, I actually looked up other times that day, and they had a couple of allowance races, went 6.5 and like 1:17. 6 furlong race and 1:11. So I mean, I don't think the track was quick by any means, but nonetheless, for a stake race, they went the last 8th in 14 seconds. If she does that tomorrow, I don't, I don't think she's going to be around much. But I mean, the distance is a question mark. She is 2 for 2 sprinting. Her only loss is 2 turns. But again, that was against graded company. But I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think she's probably more on the sprinting side.
Yeah, just individually, her final eighth was in 13-4. Her prior quarter, the third quarter of the 3 and the 7/8 race, 26-1. I mean, I know
Yeah,
they went
that's
fast early, but they were crawling home at the end. So
yeah.
I think you and I look at this race the same way. Andy, any opinion on look forward?
Well, I think she has excuses. The one time she routed at Los Al, she was pressured the whole time. And granted, they didn't go super fast 23:48, 1:13, 1:44. But like I said, taking that pressure, especially with young horses, sometimes they forget to re-aspirate, they forget to take a breath. So I think there's an excuse for her there. The 7 furlongs in the Santa Ynez walked, like you guys said, in the end, but they did go crazy fast, and she was a little bit wide on the outside. So I do think she has excuses. She's by Bolt Doro out of an into mischief mare, so I think she's an interesting one, but I don't think anyone's beating Muhima. So
Andy's on
I
Muhima.
love
We,
it.
we all know that. Joe, where are you going in the Honeybee?
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm gonna go with Mohima just because I think Brad has her tight enough to beat this field. And as Andy pointed out in the Demoiselle up at Aqueduct, you can learn a lot from a horse with their ears. I mean, I think she was just toying with that field in the end. I think she definitely had a lot left under her. Saying that, I mean, we touched on a few others in here, but I mean, I'm gonna go with the chalk.
I'll go with Take Charge Milady. I'll be the one to go. I'll be the stick in the mud, the fly in the ointment. Hope maybe she can spring a mild upset on Muhima, who, according to Andy, is the best 3-year-old in training, which may be the case. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out a lot tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, we've got live on-site coverage. It's the 5 of us. It's Simon and Joe. Joe, can we get your picture in these slides? What are we
I
doing
just
here?
sent headshots in. They're coming. I think next week or something like that.
Okay, good.
Dude.
Simon,
I-
Mike,
I
Gabby.
finally got to pose. I felt like I was 8th grade graduation.
Simon,
Dude.
Mike, Gabby, Andy, myself, Joe, we'll all be here on site Sunday afternoon. First post is 12 local, 1 o'clock on the East Coast. We'll run Sunday and Monday with the changes in the schedule. You can catch all the action live on FanDuel TV. And again, the Rebel and the Honeybee, they are the co-featured events. 50 qualifying points to both the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks to the winners. If they win, they are in the gates first Friday and first Saturday in May. The runner-ups even are going to be right there on the cusp of getting into this year's Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. We've run about 5 minutes long, so we're going to wrap this thing up now. For Joe, for Andy, I'm Matt. We'll see you 12 Eastern, 12 Central, 1 Eastern. I don't know the timing. We'll see you all day on Sunday on FanDuel TV. Don't miss it.